Do NFL announcers play fantasy football? And does Joe Buck really hate the Cowboys? We'll dive into that next.
Dominate your draft and win your league. This is Locked On Fantasy Football with Fabs and Marcus. Fabs brings the expertise, Marcus brings the fire. Together, they'll lead you to the championship. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Marcus Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is the Fantasy Football Hall of Famer, Michael Fabiano. And we've got a very special guest for you guys today. It is Joe Buck from ESPN and Monday Night Football. Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Well, your guys are kind of dumbing your show down. I'm terrible at fantasy. I've won it one time over the last 12 years. So I go to Michael all the time. I text him questions and I kind of suck at it, but I'm happy to answer anything you want to ask me.
See, now I feel bad because you said you've won one championship in 12 years, but you text me and I'm like, man, I must be really messing up with my picks for you.
I don't know how you get over the guilt. And I say that because there was a time my youngest daughter was probably 15 and she's remained huge fantasy football player to the point where she'll ask me questions about guys on teams that I'm doing that week on Monday Night Football or before that at Fox on a Sunday. I'm like, I don't know who the hell you're talking about. And she's like, well, no, Dad, he's the backup tight end. My tight end went down. I got to find a guy. I'm like, yeah, okay. So the reason I talk about guilt is there was a specific game I was doing in Seattle. And that morning, Trudy, my daughter, had texted me and said, hey, I have quarterback A and I have quarterback B. And quarterback B was Russell Wilson, who I was doing that day against a really good defense. And I said, take quarterback A. And as I'm doing the game, Russell Wilson puts up like 4 touchdowns. And I'm calling the touchdowns thinking about how awful I feel that I told my daughter to pick the wrong quarterback. And I don't know. I don't know how you do it. It's like lose your own money, lose your own fantasy football. Don't text me. I don't know. And I don't want to be responsible for you picking the wrong person of 2.
So, welcome to our world, Joe. I mean,
I know
this is what I've been doing for over 25 years for like millions of people. At least for you, it's only your daughter. So
yeah,
you know?
I mean, she's gonna love me at the end of the day. But
exactly,
I did feel bad. She's like, Dad, this was at the end of the year. It's like, oh, I could have won by league. And I was like, honey, I know. That's the fun of it. That's you don't know. You pick straw A, you pick straw B, and sometimes straw B comes back to crush you.
Yeah.
I got to ask you, how often do you get asked about fantasy football decisions? Because I would have to imagine just day to day, people are always wondering like what you think about certain players. Does it happen very often for you?
Yeah, but I think they've all kind of just gone away. I've because either A, 10 years ago, I picked the wrong person, or B, I will just respond like, hey man, lose your own money. I do not want to be responsible for this. I don't want to be involved. Every once in a while, you know, but it's more questions of, hey, I need a running back. Have you seen anybody or heard of anybody that's about to take the next step? And every once in a while, I will have heard of somebody. But my gosh, I don't know any more really than anybody else. And it's like, hey, who would you pick? And you know, I text friends of mine, like, who do you like? People that are better at fantasy than me. So yeah, I'm not the go-to guy.
So your wife, Michelle, is a dear friend of mine who I've known for a very long time. She plays in my ladies only league, which by the way, you were generous enough to do the draft order for, which was awesome. All the ladies loved it. Does Michelle ever ask you about who she should play? And have you guys ever gotten into any sort of altercations over fantasy football and maybe some decisions that she made based off your advice?
We have our own issues. We don't need to add fantasy football to it. But I'm smart enough. She's smart enough. We're living day to day around here. You know, as you know, we just moved to Denver. We've got little boys. I think the daily stresses are enough that even if she were to ask me or I were to ask her, it's never come to like, you I can't believe you. No, it's never happened. If it does, then one of us is going to have to drop out of their respective league because it's just not worth it.
Joe, how often are you thinking about fantasy football players when you're up in the booth? Because I mean, a lot of people, those Monday night games, their games are being decided. Is that something that's ever in the back of your mind when you're calling these games?
Yeah, completely. And not only are some people, sometimes it's mine in our little league. We have a group. I think it's great camaraderie. I think it's unbelievable to know the league. I think it's just good to kind of know the comings and goings and who's hurt and who's not hurt. And I think it's a valuable tool for what I do in my day job. And then we've got our producer Steve Ackles and our director Artie Kempner, and we've got our own league. So sometimes it's come down to, hey, I'm playing against Jason Rickle, who's in our truck, and I've got Tyler Ferguson, and he's got a backup running back, and we're within points of each other. So we're actually doing the game. I think of fantasy football a lot because you're right. Now I'm at the tail end of the week, and it comes down most of the time in tight games to what happens on Monday night. And yeah, I'm well aware. If somebody's going off, my mind goes to, I wonder who's got this person. If there's anybody I know who's got this person in fantasy football, and it's always right there.
All right, Joe, I just have a couple more questions for you before we go. Your name has been a very popular fantasy football I don't know if you knew this.
Oh, I'm
Very
well aware. I'm
Okay,
well
so
aware.
what are some of the best names that you have? Because I listen, I have to admit, and this is embarrassing. Your name has been part of my fantasy football team name for the last 21 years. Now, I'm not quite sure it's appropriate for this podcast. You could probably figure it out. But what are some of the ones that you have heard in the past?
The only one that I'm aware of, and I know that there's multiple of them, is Joe Buck yourself.
That's what it
Uh,
is. That's what I've had for the last 20 years. I
which,
appreciate it.
when I was in first grade and everybody learned the F word, it was like, oh, it's Joe. And now here I am, 57, a long way from first grade from when I was 6, uh, still getting that. But yeah, Joe Buck, go
I mean,
blank.
it's easy.
It's just made to orders. And then there's a website for the Buccaneers that's Joe Bucks fan,
Mhm.
which is a whole website for Tampa Bay Buccaneers fans. So I'm well aware that it's
Here I
out
thought
there,
I
and
was
I
being
take it as a
creative.
badge of honor. No, no, no.
Okay.
You're one of many, and I get a lot of people that come up to me like, "Oh, you're my name in fantasy football," and I don't know how to take it, but I'll take it in the best possible way.
All right, last one here. Fabs will be back in just a second, but Fabs and I are big Cowboy fans, and I'm sure you've heard this before, but there's been this long discussion among Cowboy fans that you hate our team. I know that's not actually the case. I know it, but I would just love to hear it from you that you're not actively rooting against the Cowboys when you're calling these games, because I can tell you all my friends and family who are Cowboy fans, they they always cringe when you and Troy are doing a Cowboy game because they feel
The
like you hate them. I
I
know that.
get I
Tell me.
get a lot of comments saying that Troy does because Troy's the ex-player and therefore and the Cowboy Ring of Honor and Hall of Famer. Anything he says that is anywhere close to being critical of anything, which is our job, is taken like, I can't believe you just said that about my Cowboys. And then I typically get it from Green Bay Packer fans. I live that every day in baseball because when I showed up in baseball, I'm the national guy. Teams have obviously every game on TV, and the games are done by the hometown guy. And you get excited when your team hits a home run, and you get almost sad when the other team hits a home run. And then I show up, and it was World Series 24 times, and I'm screaming and yelling because the other team hit a home run, and people hate that. They want to kill me because it's like, why are you so excited that my team just gave up a home run? So I think it's more probably in your end of oh I he's so mean to my Cowboys. I will say this. I'm doing the Super Bowl this year, and I've already been very public in saying that if I could have any dream matchup, it would be Buffalo against Dallas.
Oh, sign me up.
I was at Fox for 28 years, and believe me, I know who drives ratings in the NFL. Good, bad, doesn't matter. It's the Dallas Cowboys. So if anything, I'm the other way.
Good. That's what
If
I wanted to
anything,
hear.
I'm the other way, but I can never convince fans of that, and that's fine. As long as you know I'm there, I really don't care.
Joe, thank you so much for your time. Have a great season. You and Troy are the absolute best. I cannot wait to watch and listen to you guys this year.
Thank you, and, I like, Michael with the, Max Headroom thing going on right now where he's just kinda
He's back. It's all
he's
those storms
back.
out there in
The
Florida.
literally, Joe, literally before you came on, I told Marcus because I'm in South Florida. I said, "Dude, there's a storm coming through." And he's like, "Oh man, I hope you don't lose power." So it's your fault, Marcus, because you jinxed it.
It's all right.
But I'm sure Marcus did a phenomenal job. I love you, Joe. You're awesome, and I really appreciate you taking a few minutes to mostly talk to Marcus and not me. But
Yeah,
text me
it's my
anytime.
pleasure. It's
Yeah.
my pleasure, and I will. Be careful what you throw out there, because
Michelle
I will
does it.
wear
You
you
may as
out.
well join her.
Well, that's not fair. Michelle's in your league. I have nothing to do with your league,
Yeah,
so
but
it's
I'm
a
not
little
in the league. I only run it. I don't play in the league. I only run the league.
okay, fair
Yeah.
enough. I will.
So,
All right,
all right,
let's
brother.
talk about all of the latest fantasy football news around the NFL next. This episode is brought to you by Odoo. Running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works in one place. Odoo is the one platform to manage, grow, and scale your business, because the best organizations know that success isn't just about talent. It's about having everyone working toward the same goal. And that's true in sports, just like it is in business. I don't think the Seahawks were the most talented team in the NFL last year, but they communicated extremely well. And that's why they ultimately won the Super Bowl. Great organizations win because operations matter. And that's why you should get Odoo. Try for free today at odoo.com/locked on. That is odoo.com/locked on. Welcome back to the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Fabs, I want to talk about the trade that went down on Monday, and that is Kayshon Boutte being traded from the Patriots to the Houston Texans for essentially a late round pick and a end of roster player from Houston. Boutte's going to be taking over that Jaden Higgins role in Houston. Does he have any fantasy value?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love this because now I get to say Boutte more often, because we were going to say Boutte very much because Boutte was going to be behind A.J. Brown and Romeo Doubs and Demario Douglas in New England. Now he's the number 2 wide receiver in an offense that, listen, I'm not saying that he's going to be a starter every week, but this offense needs pass catchers, right? Nico Collins is clearly number 1. After that, is Tank Dell going to be ready for week 1? Is he not? We don't know. They've got some other pieces there. You know, Jalen Noel, is he ready for the spotlight yet? Obviously, the Texans didn't think so. So they bring in Boutte. He's going to be the 2. I would draft him as a wide receiver 5 in some leagues. Again, will the consistency be there? Of course not. This is going to be an offense that's going to run the ball a lot. They're going to throw the ball, of course, to Nico a whole bunch. But this is a really good, because Boutte had no value at all. I mean, his value was gone in New England. And now in Houston, he's back. So there's going to be games, I think, Marcus, where he's going to pop. You know, and he's going to put up 15, 16 points. Unfortunately, I just don't know if there's going to be consistent levels of production at those heights. But I still think he is well worth taking, again, as that wide receiver 5, a late round dart throw.
I want to talk about Houston before we go over to New England really quickly, because I was reading a report from Aaron Wilson, who does a really good job covering the Texans, who said that Tank Dell isn't anywhere close to being ready. And that, to me, it's a bummer, but we understand that's probably realistic. Jalen Noel has also missed a lot of time in training camp. But the reason why the Boutte trade makes me excited is because he can play on the outside. And I think that's going to allow Nico Collins to maybe play some more inside in the slot. I don't think it's going to be a full-time role, but they needed another viable outside receiver that could allow Collins to move around a little bit. And I think, if anything, this just makes Nico Collins an even better pick in your drafts. I know he's going second round. Sometimes he goes into the third round. Man, I want Nico Collins on my teams this year.
Yeah, and there's certainly he's been very good. The one bugaboo, with Nico is that he tends to get nicked up.
Yeah.
Let's hope that doesn't happen this year. If it does, I mean, Booty's value is going to rise even more. And I know Houston brought in like Zay Jones and Sterling Shepard. Those guys are now sort of ancillary pieces. If they even make the roster, we'll find out. But Nico, like you said, second round pick, third at worst. I would guess second round pick, and Booty late round pick. Maybe because I know a lot of people were thinking, well, maybe this is good for Dalton Schultz.
I don't think it changes anything.
When Jaden Higgins went out, he's still a tight end 2 type and not a exceptional one either, regardless.
It does make me feel a little bit better about CJ Stroud, who you can get for basically free in any drafts right now, like any non-super flex drafts, just because if it was only going to be Nico Collins and the list of veteran receivers you just mentioned, it's not that appealing. At least Kayshon Boutte is like a actual NFL receiver. Now we can debate if he's qualified to be a number 2 or really like a number 3 or number 4, but at least you have something else to throw to or someone else to throw to. It just makes me feel a bit better about CJ Stroud.
This was a win all the way around. And a lot of times when NFL teams make trades, it's not like that. This one is a win all the way around. Bootie's a winner. Stroud to a degree is a winner. It's not going to affect Nico, and it doesn't affect Brown, Dobbs, or Douglas.
I disagree with this, though. I do think it affects Romeo Dobbs a little bit because I was concerned. Boutte was, by all accounts, having a really good training camp. And not that I was concerned that Boutte was going to beat out Romeo Dobbs for a starting spot.
Not with the money that dude's making. I didn't have any issues with that.
But I was worried that it was going to become more of a rotation than anybody anticipated. But I think now that Boutte is gone and Kyle Williams and Pop Douglas both can play inside.
Can you at least finally admit that Kyle Williams is not going to be anything?
All he does is put up big plays in the preseason, man. That's all he does. He just dominates. He's probably not going to have a role.
The word there, Marcus, that you said is preseason.
I know.
Exhibition.
I like Kyle. I just think he's a good player. That's all.
Yeah, the Patriots don't, apparently.
I just think this makes Romeo Dobbs just a little bit more appealing because you're not constantly afraid that Boutte's going to come on and have 20 snaps in a game.
I never felt that concern. So, we'll agree to disagree there. But overall, it's a win for everybody involved.
All right, let's talk about some of the other news around the NFL, including Deshaun Watson.
Did I not tell you? I told you. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong.
Hold on.
I told you it was going to be Watson in week 1.
I got a theory on this. We're going to talk about Deshaun Watson starting in Cleveland next. Support for today's episode comes from Indeed Sponsored Jobs. When workplace chaos hits and you need the right hire, Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps connect employers with candidates who match specific needs like skills, certifications, and location, so less time gets spent searching and more time gets spent finding the right fit. People are finding quality hires on Indeed right now. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours have already made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing the candidates who check all of your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results. And when you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Welcome back to the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Fabs, let's talk about this quarterback competition in Cleveland. Todd Monken named Deshaun Watson the starter on Monday. That comes after a really poor preseason performance by Watson, where he was playing in the second half with third stringers. What is your take on it?
I told you it was going to be this way, but I also told you both Watson and Shedeur are going to start games this year. I wouldn't be surprised if one started 9, one started 8. the Browns they're not going to be a good team, and they're going to probably draft their future quarterback in 2027. Now, Watson is going to be draftable in Superflex. That's it. Okay. How does this affect Casey Concepcion or Denzel Boston or Harold Fannin? I mean, listen, what did they have under center last year? I mean, we're not talking about, these great quarterbacks. Okay. So I'm not moving Fannin. And to be honest with you, I mean, Concepcion is still the guy that I want to go out and get as a 4 or 5. Why not? Right? Denzel Boston is somebody I want to go get as a wide receiver 5. Why not? Right? If he doesn't pan out in the first few weeks, I cut him. It's not like I used a lot of draft capital. I will say this, being a Browns fan right now has got to be one of the worst scenarios in sports because you haven't won anything in forever. And your team just continues to make awful decisions. You sign a guy to a $230 million guaranteed contract and you have gotten bupkis from him. And I think that's also part of the reason why I don't know. One or two things. And I'm not even thinking in terms of football here. I'm just thinking in terms of just human beings. Number one, they want to try to get something out of Deshaun Watson. Something, okay? Because they have gotten nothing out of him for their $230 million investment. Here's my second thought. They're throwing him out there to the Wolves. He's going to suck.
Bingo.
The fans are going to destroy him. Everyone in Cleveland media is going to destroy him. And then they'll bring in Shedeur Sanders.
Yes.
It's one of those two things.
That's my take on this whole situation is I think that's ultimately what's going to happen, but I don't think you could have done it the other way, right? If you name Shedeur the starter and he struggles the first month of the season, nobody, absolutely nobody is going to want them to go to Deshaun Watson. But if you do it the other way, you let Watson go out there and play. If he plays well, great, right? The fans they're not going to like him, but at least he's giving you quality play. If he struggles in the first month, you move on to Shedeur. And then if Shedeur doesn't play well, maybe that's when you give Dylan Gabriel or Taylor Green a shot. I just think that's the best way of going about this. Mm-hmm. But I think more than anything, Fabs, this is just a signal to the rest of the NFL and to the fan base. We do not have our franchise quarterback on the roster. We are not telling you that we do. We don't have any blind thoughts that we do. We are going into the 2027 draft with the idea that we are drafting a quarterback early. Just grit your teeth, get through this season, watch our young, exciting receivers, and we'll fix it next year.
A lot of teams like that. Browns, Jets, Dolphins, right off the top of my head, teams that are not going to be good this year, who are going to be looking for their quarterback next year. The Cardinals, you can also throw that into the mix because I don't think the Cardinals, even if Carson Beck looks decent, are going to pass on drafting a quarterback if they're in the top 3 next year. Before we close out, I want to tell you a quick story, okay? And everyone out there who's a fantasy football commissioner can appreciate this. I have become the commissioner of the WWE Locker Room League. So it's a bunch of wrestlers, referees, and me, a dopey fantasy football analyst. And I'm the commissioner now. And I am trying to get these guys to change the way the playoffs are seeded. If you're a commissioner and you're going by the old, well, it's the top 6 teams in the standings, then you're doing it wrong. You're 100% doing it wrong. The way that it should be done is best record, most points, best record, most points, best record, most points. I'm trying to instill into these guys' heads that that's the way to do it, and they won't go for it at all. So the only way that I'm going to have any sort of leeway here is the 6th seed will be the most points scored out of the teams not in the top 5 in the standings. If you're a commissioner, you know this, but I know I'm getting completely off the topic of Deshaun Watson. I think we've covered that pretty well.
That's all right. I did have one more thought on the Browns. One more.
Go ahead.
You and I were in a rookie draft. We're still drafting right now.
Yeah.
And I had the 4th pick in this draft. And off the board were your Jadarian Price, Jeremiah Love, not in that order. Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, Carnell Tate. And I'm sitting there at the 4th pick, not needing a quarterback because it is a super flex league. And I'm looking at Mekhi Lemon, who has been dealing with a hamstring injury, who is also the number 3 receiver in Philadelphia right now. I think long-term, he's going to be the 2. Jordan Tyson, who's already hurt again. Stribling, who I really like, but it feels a little high. And I went Casey Concepcion, honestly, Fabs, and I didn't put a lot of thought into it. I really like Casey, and this quarterback situation just hasn't changed much for me at all. I expect the Browns to just load him up with touches on a lot of these underneath routes to get the ball out of Deshaun Watson or Dylan Gabriel or Shador Sanders' hand.
Dylan Gabriel is even there anymore?
I think so.
How do you feel if you're Dylan Gabriel? When they traded for Jared Verse, they basically said, dude, your number, it's not number 8 anymore. It's like, goodbye. Imagine if somebody did that, like to Troy Aikman, like early on, and like, are you out of your mind? So that's 100% disrespect right there.
Do you agree with the thought process of taking Casey at 4?
Yeah, I like him. I like him. And I'm in this dynasty draft as well. I understand the thought process. Would I have done that? I don't know if I would have. I have Tyson ranked ahead of him. I have Lemon ranked ahead of him. But is it really close to the point where it's personal preference? Yes. It's not insane, right? And like, listen, guys, remember when the 49ers were on the clock and they didn't take Denzel Boston? They took Stribling. And then Cleveland got Boston. It's personal preference. Who do you like more? And all of a sudden, Stribling is being drafted. I mean, I saw him drafted in the 7th round, which is crazy.
It's happening.
Which is crazy, but that's what happens, man. And see, that's about landing spot. If Boston were in San Francisco, we would be gaga over him right now and not Stribling.
I think for me, it's just the realization that like Chris Olave has had a phenomenal training camp. Even if Jordan Tyson is healthy, he's going to be operating, let's say, as the 1B, not necessarily the 2, but the 1B. Mekhi Lemon is going to be the 2 behind Devontae Smith. I just feel like maybe for this year and next year, there's not a lot of competition for targets in Cleveland. And I think with the way that Todd Monken is going to use him, you're going to get a lot of volume early on. And maybe that's thinking too short term. But I also just really like the player as well.
I think the only thing that could ruin this is if the Browns take the kid out of Ohio State, the wide receiver. Is it Jeremiah
Smith instead of a quarterback, though?
Right. So I know. And again, you guys apologize. I apologize. I'm not massively into college football until I need to be. So if they don't finish as one of the 5 worst teams, which I can't imagine in a million years that they're not going to finish as one of the 3 worst.
They're going to be drafting a quarterback.
But what I'm saying is that's the only way. It's the only way that something is going to potentially ruin Concepcion or Boston from a fantasy perspective. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Browns have their guys at wide receiver, and now it's time to actually get a dude that can throw the ball to them accurately and consistently.
All right, that is it for today's show. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Now on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 YouTube channel on the NFL. And we'd like to give a special shout out to Joe Buck for joining our show to talk about some fantasy football, to talk about my Cowboys and why he actually doesn't hate them. Follow Fabs on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. I'm at Marcus_Mosher, and we will see you right back here tomorrow with Matt Williamson.